Hello beautiful people, this video is on why is strategy execution important. Many teams, particularly executive teams, pour tons of energy and effort into brilliant strategies. They hire outside consultants, they do amazing presentations, they do road shows, they do all the great stuff to get us all excited about the strategy. But many times they'll see their desired impact for the strategy fizzle at the finish line. In this episode, we're going to unpack why implementation is not an afterthought. It's in fact the deciding factor as to whether or not your strategy changes anything at all. Hi, I'm Jennifer Kenny. I'm the best-selling author of The Innovation Mindset and award-winning author of 100% Capacity. I work with technical and scientific teams in highly complex environments, sometimes regulated and highly high-speed environments, to help them deliver successfully on executing strategies and on delivering on projects. So when we think about strategy implementation, we often think about rolling out a strategy. We often build plans in isolation from the rest of the company, and then we communicate or roll them out to the different orgs over time. One of the things that I think is a failure with that is that ideas are cheap. And I'm not saying good strategies are cheap, sometimes they're very expensive, but the ideas in those good strategies don't really count for anything until we're able to implement them. So think of implementation as the real value differentiator for any strategy. Most organizations don't actually suffer from lack of vision, or they don't suffer from lack of strategy. They suffer from lack of execution capability. Think of it like this: strategy is the potential of what the company could do, and execution is actually the performance or the reality of what the company can do. A McKinsey study found that 70% of strategic initiatives actually fail to meet objectives, largely due to breakdowns in implementation, not poor vision. Executional intelligence is actually the key differentiator in here. It's your ability, it's our ability, our combined ability to be able to translate abstract goals into coordinated actions, to be able to navigate constraints, to be able to sustain momentum, and to be able to build trust-based agreements. When executional intelligence is high, implementation becomes smooth, becomes measurable, and becomes repeatable and sustainable. The repeatable and sustainable, I think, is very important because many teams are operating in burnout at the moment. Without reliable delivery, we're never going to be able to deliver on the return, the projected ROI of our strategy. And without implementation, strategy becomes shelfware, trust with stakeholders erodes, revenue gains disappear, and talent gets demoralized. I'm sure you've been in situations where you've had constant change, constant new strategies, constant new reorgs, and as those strategies and reorgs work themselves down into the organization in whatever way they do, you see the value of them dissipate, and you see people rolling their eyes with, oh, they're doing it again, we're moving the deck chairs on the Titanic. Execution breakdown accounts for 20 to 40% of project budgets. So when you think about the success of a project to implement a strategy, if you are not understanding the importance of execution, you're all setting yourself up to waste 20 to 40% of your project budget. For even a small, very small $1 million project, that's $200,000 to $400,000 in direct waste. So I want to introduce you to the execution layer. The execution layer is where it really happens. There are two operating layers within organizations today. One of them is the one that we can see, the visible operating layer. That visible operating layer has strategy documents, it has project documents, it has execution plans, it has project plans, it has Slack channels, team channels, project management tools, Asana, Monday, whichever one people are using. But what it doesn't have is it doesn't have visibility into the how and the who of how the work gets done. It doesn't give us visibility into the informal networks of commitments that are happening across the organization to be able to deliver or execute on the value of the strategy. I've built frameworks and technologies that allow us to be able to see the execution layer, and I've implemented it with many different clients. I want to introduce you to the concept so you can begin to build what I refer to as your executional intelligence, your ability to be able to see those networks of commitments, those networks of promises, those networks of offer, those networks of value contribution that exist all the way up and down and across your organization. Most orgs try to fix implementation that isn't working or execution that isn't working by doing some of the standard fixes that we do that function at the top layer, the operating layer. What we do is we do more meetings, we do more dashboards, we do more processes, we do more standard operating procedures, and we try to drive down control to be able to give us transparency and visibility into something that is actually much more human than a lot of the tools that we use to be able to visualize it, see it, understand it, try and make sense of it. And what that does is it simply adds friction to the process, because the execution layer is the actual flow of the coordination and commitment across the people, not the plans or the project software. Implementation becomes incredibly powerful when this execution layer, this network of commitments, actually becomes visible, is intentionally designed, and is supported by shared language. Many of the clients that I've worked with, we have gone in and done this manually. We have trained people how to be able to observe the execution layer. We've increased their executional intelligence. So you will find little pockets of people who are good at getting stuff done. If we build shared language with those people through the process of explaining to them what commitments really are, what promises really are, how to make powerful offers, how to intentionally build trust, how to set standards, how to develop metrics, and how to really be able to look at building coherence across the orchestration of human effort, what we end up doing in there is we end up significantly impacting their business metrics, and we increase their chances of project success significantly. With the introduction of AI, we are now able to do that in a much more ubiquitous way and in a much more natural language way, because our framework is built on natural language. We're able to use the natural language of AI to be able to identify these networks that are happening across the organization. And I don't mean influence networks, I mean actual commitment, getting the work done networks. Since we're able to do that using the AI technology, we're also able to predict where there are breakdowns in those networks, where those networks are ineffective, where we're struggling to be able to execute and deliver real value. As we start thinking about why strategy execution is important, and we acknowledge that strategy execution is very important, sometimes it is more important than the strategy, we need to be able to think of our execution layer as something that we can design, as something that we can use to be able to do highly successful implementation. We also need to be able to think of how we build execution intelligence into our people. Lots of organizations build organizational intelligence into their people. So I'm aware of the org chart, I'm aware of all of the other functional areas in my company, I'm aware of the hierarchy within the org chart, I'm aware of the CEO and how many directs she or he has reporting to him or her. And what happens in there is I'm paying attention to the visible layer, but the invisible layer is where the real work gets done. If we can help people see, understand, design, hear, pay attention to, and function within that invisible operating layer, that execution layer, over time what we'll discover is that we're building an executional intelligence that allows us to be able to deliver much more successfully on projects. As you start thinking about your strategy execution, I'm doing 20 videos on this topic as part of this series. I talk about what is executional intelligence, talk about how to get started learning it, talk about how to get started using it to leverage the success of some of your projects. I also have a freebie for you, which is a white paper called Execution by Design. If you're interested in this, if this topic makes sense to you, if you've run into some of these breakdowns or issues or problems as you've worked to be successful in your projects, if you're hair on fire, tearing your hair out, this is a good time to really begin to build your own executional intelligence, begin to observe the execution layer within your organization, begin to build shared language with your peers and with your teams around how to actually do successful execution. The white paper is called Execution by Design. There's a link to it down in the comments. You can also find it on my website, which is www.jenniferkenny.com/execution. It's also available under the free resources tab. Execution by Design steps you through this concept and how to begin to think about it and how to begin to implement it and why it's so important for strategy implementation. As you go through this process and you up your own executional intelligence, I'm here to support you. I wish you the very best of luck with it. Let me know how the journey is going for you, and let me know what kind of successes you're delivering because you've increased your executional intelligence and your team's executional capacity. I wish you the best of luck with this, and take care.